Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, hi. How you doing? Yikes. Well, guys, I don't know. My problem right now, right at this very moment, is where to start. I thought I had an idea in my head, and now, as push comes to shove, I'm not sure which particular horror to engage with. So let me get to something. And I don't know what this is when I couldn't sleep last night. I began thinking about the proper response to the chaos and cruelty. And I realized, and I think I vaguely remember this from last time around, I realized that what is most maddening about being aware of and I'm sorry, I just got a text that I've pretty much got to deal with. Excuse me. Damn it. Here's what I've decided. The problem we find ourselves in is damned if we do, damned if we don't. The intent, and we know this, the intent of the fire hose of crap and horror that we knew was coming and now is here, the idea of it, in part, in large part, is intended to get us to react as we do. You'd have to be dead not to react. But our outraged reaction is also what Trump wants, because it's what his base loves about him. Freaking us out, making us crazy. And we do. We go nuts. We start screaming. We talk about the end of the world, blah, 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 everything that we did yesterday. But that, in part, is the point. So in freaking out, we fall into his trap. And yet, to not freak out, to maintain what? Some kind of quiet equilibrium and just go about our lives quietly. He wins if we do that. This is what kept me up last night. There's always something, but it was this particular catch-22. That no matter what we do, yesterday there was a bit of a difference of opinion amongst some of us about, I think it was Clarence who said, you gotta call them these idiots stupid because they are stupid. And yet we recall we were counseled that that's no way to win them over. I think my problem is I understand both sides of that debate. Both make sense to me. They are stupid or worse. because there's an ugliness afoot that trumps, you'll pardon the use of the word, stupidity. And that is the joy that is being taken in cruelty, in the genuine suffering of human beings. Someone, Kurt, sent me, and I was glad to see it. Will you hang on just 1 minute? I'm sorry. Just gotta really type something fast. Wait. Okay, all right, sorry. Had to be done. Sent me something that the U.S. I think Conference of Catholic Bishops came out with, and it's powerful. It's strong. It's right. It's dead on, and it's I was so grateful to see it. I don't know how much impact that has. Trump got a huge segment of American Catholics' vote. Does their bishops coming out and condemning pretty much everything he's done since he's gotten in, does that have an impact on them when they are part of the happy crowd that wanted this? I don't know. Here's part of what they said. And if this ever gets to Donald Trump, it'll be a shock. However, it has to have some weight. In part, they say we cannot abide injustice. And we stress that national self-interest does not justify policies with consequences that are contrary to the moral law. The use of sweeping generalizations to denigrate any group, such as describing all undocumented immigrants as criminals or invaders to deprive them of protection under the law, is an affront to God. They go on. And I mean, it's really very unequivocal statement here. They say for Christians, this is unacceptable. The executive orders, several of them signed by President Trump this week, are specifically intended to eviscerate humanitarian protections enshrined in law and to undermine due process, subjecting vulnerable families and children to grave danger. They go on, they tick off everything, going after almost every one of these noxious and unconstitutional acts that Trump has done. And they finish it by saying, we urge President Trump to pivot from these enforcement-only policies to just and merciful solutions, working in good faith with members of Congress to achieve meaningful, bipartisan immigration reform that furthers the common good with an effective, orderly immigration system. My brother bishops and I will support this. I don't know. It's good to see the church speaking out really forcefully. Everything they said coincides exactly with the Episcopalian bishop who said it to his face at great risk to her own life. But I I want to go back to what I was saying about what we need to remember about the position, the unbelievably frustrating position that we in opposition find ourselves in. The fact that the game that has been created here means that our opposition feeds his base, strengthens them. It's maddening. They love getting us upset. What we've got to figure out is how to not have it end with squawking, screaming, wailing, and upset. We've got to figure out how to hit back, how to get through to the people that are capable of being reached. One of the things, and again, if I'm not talking about your particular number one outrage of the minute, I'm sorry. As you know, I mean, there's no end. It's bottomless. But I'm struck with how huge the what's the hell? What is that proper word? I can't think of it. How huge the outrages he has created with every flourish of his pen. And there is a senator who is not a Republican, but he's also not a Democrat. There are two of those, as far as I know. And I'm talking about Angus King. He's an independent. And he's a very sort of cool-headed character. Hard not to like this guy. And I've never seen him as enraged as he was yesterday. He called Trump's stoppage of the grants and loans blatantly unconstitutional, which it is. Which is why a federal judge stopped it temporarily. And he said, this is not a guy given to making, over the top statements. He said, this is the most direct assault on the authority of Congress in the history of the United States. Never before, he says. Never before has an entire branch, the legislative branch, with constitutional powers been kicked to the curb, as Trump has done in the last 8 days. This is what a constitutional crisis looks like, and yet you wouldn't know it. Would you? Because what are we doing? I mean, the lawsuits are flying. But we know Trump. Isn't that part of his game plan again? He knows full well that much of what he's doing is against the law. He knows lawsuits will come. That's part of how he's lived his life throughout, using the courts to delay. So you do the illegal act, and then you wait. And the fact of the matter is every once in a while you throw enough illegal stuff out there, some of it gets through. Not all of it is turned back. And in the interim, what occurs is chaos, which is what they want, fear, which is what they want, and people pulling their punches because they see a crazy guy who doesn't follow the rules and will do anything. And that's scary. It's his game. And I don't know, since he sets the rules, the parameters, we're forced to play his game. And as I said, I don't think we can win. He and his people know full well that most of this grant money will start up again. They know that kids will get their food. They know that birthright citizenship will continue. The goal of all of this performative, much of it, this performative crap, is not to implement any policy. These guys don't have much policy. They have destruction in mind. Destruction of existing policy. Nothing necessarily to replace it. The goal of all of these executive orders, many of which are illegal, is not to do what they say they are to do, not to implement policy, but to do what they are doing, which is generate our outrage, our attention. And then all of that going out on their right-wing media to the delight of their base who gave us this. And all of these executive orders and this performance is also designed to show his base that he's doing exactly what he said he would do, even if he can't legally do them. Tom Nichols says, so he said he was going to eliminate birthright citizenship, so he sharpied out part of the 14th Amendment and declared victory. He froze the federal grants and loans, which endangered a multitude of programs, including school lunches. And by the way, did you see the Republican people in Congress? They're accepting this. They're even doubling down on some of it. Did you see the son of a bitch from Georgia? His name was the name of our new senator. His name is McCormick, Rich McCormick of the state of Georgia. He said, when asked, well, there's school programs to feed kids who rely on this. They've been stopped. The kids can't get their breakfast. They can't get their lunch. And this despicable human said something to the effect of, hey, kids need to learn that if you want something, you work for it. These programs teach them to have their hands out. He literally used the term that these children, hungry first graders, were, quote, sponging off the government. Tom Nichols said, oh, yeah, sure. The base loves this. I guess instead of feeding those kids, what are we supposed to do? Hand them a glass of water and wish them luck in their job search? What the hell? But you see, the understandable outrage with which we greet this evil is lapped up by the people who put him back in the White House. And as the Catholic bishops have warned them, they're walking on the wrong side of the Lord. I don't know if they'll ever figure it out because they probably listen to ministers who tell them that Donald Trump is the savior. But we got to understand what this game plan is. And it is like with the firing of people he can't fire, the massacre. Remember what was it, the Saturday Night Massacre? What was that back in the good old days? When the firing of one person in the federal government by a president could set off, just months of all of us focused on the appalling unconstitutionality of it, the chutzpah of it, the un-Americanness of it. And here's a guy who's literally trying to get rid of the majority of our government, destroy it, eviscerate it. He said he was going to, and damn if he's not giving it a good shot. But, this is, again, it's performative. It is to feed their base, to feed their media. It's so baldly performative in that the vile puppy-killing Kristi Noem, who now is in charge of our Homeland Security, was out and about, I think early today, or maybe it was yesterday, going on a raid with ICE. And man, she was dolled up. She outfitted herself for the cameras with all the kind of, she has on these tight jeans. She's got on a bulletproof vest. She's got on, her seal on her hat. And all fully made up. Performative for the drooling base. And she posted on social media where the base lives and where Democrats better start living too if they want to reach anybody. She posted because she went on, and some guy, they pick someone who really is here illegally and has done bad stuff. Cameras rolling, and then she says, dirt bags like this. The Catholic bishops would not approve of someone in a position of such authority in our government talking about a fellow human being, even somebody who had done some bad things, as a dirt bag. But, performance. Dirt bags like this will be removed from our streets. And then she said, as if she's a little mixed up, she thinks maybe all of a sudden she's an anchor person or a reporter in the field, and she writes, live this AM from NYC, I'm on it, and then posted her picture in the bulletproof vest. Folks, this is they and we have dumbed down the population and sedated the population on violent entertainment for decades. And now they've fallen for having a president who was a reality television star. The whole point of the cruelty of that show was, being able to toss a person out, you're fired. Why people love that kind of thing, I don't know, but they ate it up. And then other ICE raids. Did you see who went along on those? And actually was questioning and some of these souls who were being snatched up for the cameras. Dr. Phil, part of the show. The melding, the 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 melding of entertainment television and news and government is what they serve up. Do you remember back in the day, Paul Harvey, radio? And he used to move so seamlessly from his news reporting into a commercial that he would do live that most people couldn't tell the difference. That was the genius of it, because that authoritative voice who had just told you what was happening was now telling you what to buy. And most people on the receiving end are not making the distinction. And that kind of media illiteracy, which now seems so benign, a la Paul Harvey, but which I used to find outrageous and amazing, is, I mean, it's over. It's been done. Most people don't perceive a difference anymore. So if Dr. Phil shows up now on these raids, that makes sense. And Christy shows up in her bulletproof vests and makeup artist having done her, everything just perfect. Script writers, same guys who might have written, some Hollywood Arnold Schwarzenegger film, speaking in those kind of clipped phrases, tough guy phrases. This is what millions of Americans now see as strength. I see it for what it is, which is manipulative cruelty. And I must say, these guys are masters. And if our side doesn't step up its game big time, we're in big trouble. It's really hard to understate how vile these people are. And by the way, just keeping an eye back on Fetterman, he was one sort of. I don't know if what he's trying to do is not play into, not letting them make him freak out and be part of the outrage. He's really intent on jumping on us for being outraged, saying that that's what Fetterman's saying. But on the other hand, I don't know what he's offering in terms of resistance that is effective. So Fetterman, who lives on social media, says yesterday about the freeze that was freaking everybody out all over the country, every government, from, some little village somewhere to New York City, all the universities, all the hospitals, all the schools. Fetterman wrote, I'm not freaking out. I wish, here's what he went on to say, I wish an executive order, well, I could get a beautiful head of hair. He's saying that's how much some of these executive orders are going to actually result. I could write an executive order giving myself a head of hair, he says. Just because it's an executive order doesn't mean it's going to be a reality. I'm not going to freak out, but I know you guys. Those freakouts keep you in business. Now, I'm not sure exactly who he's talking to there. I think he's talking to other people and on the internet and also on these platforms and maybe media. But okay, as I said, I understand freaking out is playing into their hands. On the other hand, what is he doing? And he went on to say, Fetterman, those are the kinds of things he was running on. I certainly don't support a lot of those things. And of course, there's things we need to be concerned about. But I think clearly there are some things that are probably not going to actually be realized, like birthright citizenship. So he's saying what, yes, I said, that this is performative. Trump fully knows that the courts will say you can't do this. But first of all, I want to say Fetterman, um, he's starting to drive me nuts. He really is, because he's full on into the performative crap too. He understands where we've gotten ourselves, and he's figuring we ain't getting ourselves out of it. And he's probably right, because they, the guys who make the algorithms and who know how to get our attention, they got our number. They got your number, my number. They got all our numbers. And I'm not so sure in that respect the game ain't over. Lynn writes, I wrote to Lee, Summerlee, Fetterman, and McCormick about Trump, saying they rigged the election for him, and I never received any reception of my letters, as I usually would. Well, look, you think the election was rigged? Oh, God. You know, so RFK, it's his day or two in the spotlight. If that guy gets put through, it's, I don't know what to say. That someone as careful and private as Carolyn Kennedy would write a letter to the senators about her own cousin, as she did. It's, I mean, I'm assuming that you've seen what she said. It's mind blowing. It's, this guy he's crazy, but then he's crazy and he's cruel. But then that's why he fits so well. That's why he and Trump just, yeah, they understood each other right away. They got the same kind of crazy. And Carolyn Kennedy, if you hadn't, see, I'll just do a few bits from her letter. I have known Bobby my whole life. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator. I watched his younger brothers and cousins follow him down the path of drug addiction. His basement, his garage, his dorm room, always the center of the action where drugs were available. And he enjoyed showing off how he put baby chickens and mice in a blender to feed to his hawks. And then she goes on to say something I did not know. She says, well, I did know, Bobby is addicted to attention and power. Therein, the Trumpian, interface. They are very much damaged in the same way. And then she goes on to say, Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own children, while building a following, hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs. Now, I did not know that. He's vaccinated his own? She goes on to say, it also was not easy to remain silent last year when Bobby expropriated my father's image and distracted President Kennedy's legacy to advance his own failed presidential campaign and then grovel to Donald Trump. He continues to grandstand off my father's assassination and that of his own father. It is incomprehensible to me that someone who is willing to exploit their own painful family tragedies for publicity would be put in charge of America's life and death situations. I decided to torture myself yesterday by I actually watched live the first press conference from the Trump White House with the new press secretary, who is 27 years old. My understanding is that our brains aren't fully developed by 27. That's the new science. But there she is, and that is Trump's press secretary. And of course, she's a young blonde babe. But the funniest thing I saw about it, because I couldn't help but notice, she was wearing, I mean, not again the performative aspect of these people. You can never lose sight of it, because in that regard, you are being played all the time. You could not help but notice when she showed up at the podium. Her name is, by the way, Carolyn Levitt, spelled Leave It. Anyway, I'll let Tom Nichols, I think it was Tom Nichols who said this because it is so funny. Levitt appeared wearing a purple jacket and a gold cross of a size commonly associated with the warding off of vampires. I howled when I read that because it was the first thing I noticed. She had on a necklace, a cross. I mean, it's almost if a cross could be like an aggressive thing. I know not what Jesus intended, but it's like in your face. That was the cross. It wasn't a cross that was put on in humility and true Christian faith. No, it was exactly, and he nailed it, a cross of a size commonly associated with the warding off of vampires. And it was something. Not the necklace now, the performance, something else. And she started by saying, nobody trusts you guys, the usual guys that are always here. And she said they're going to put in the front row now people who have podcasts, right wing, people, they said anybody can apply for a pass. You can apply, fat chance you'll get it, but people with the right politics are going to be in that room. People from, the kind of news outlets that you and I might get our news from are not squeezed out, but definitely losing their position. She went on to, just unbelievable. She some of the laugh lines that I got, I don't think she intended them as laugh lines, is she actually said that President Trump has always been the hardest working man in government. She said that the golden age of America has begun. Yeah. She said that Europe has no greater ally than Donald Trump. Someone asked her if Black History Month is going to still be around since, well, it's DEI, ain't it? DEI is about literally whitewashing our government. DEI is about getting Black people and anybody who ain't white out of the picture. Um, Black History Month, she said, we will continue to celebrate the contributions that all Americans, regardless of race, have made. There goes Black History Month. It was something. One of the right wing reporters she called on, who is from some, propaganda site, I don't know which one, I never heard of. His first words to her were something like, "You look lovely, and you're doing so well." And I mean, this is the media that they're going to put front and center. I think the second question was from Breitbart News. God Almighty. And so Hegseth is in, and what's like the first thing he does? And he's supposed to be protecting the country. The first thing he does is he lets us know who the enemy is, and it happens to be General Milley. The the pettiness of these people cannot be overstated. Mind blowing. Just so he's what they've already, of course, first thing they take Milley's portrait down. They're going to take it to anywhere there's a picture of Milley, it's down and in the wastebasket. But they also did what he did to Pompeo and to Fauci and to Bolton. People who he's demonized, they've demonized so that they get death threats constantly. And by the way, death threats that are considered credible death threats. Some of these death threats coming from state actors, as they say, Iran, for one, on Pompeo and Bolton. And Milley, so they yanked all his security as well. And it's not like he's a billionaire who can afford the kind of security that maybe some of the others who are targeted can. The venality, the ugliness, the pettiness of this is really something to behold. So he revoked his security detail, his security clearance, and he's ordered an inquiry, inspector general inquiry. Wait a minute, there's still an inspector general in defense? I thought all those guys got fired illegally. Anyway, he ordered an again, performative, inspector general inquiry into Milley's behavior. And Trump, of course, have called for his execution. You call for his execution, then you take away his security detail. Now, Milley is one of the people Biden preemptively pardoned, knowing that Trump would go after him like this. But that doesn't prevent Hegseth from going after him through military processes in the Defense Department. And of course, the law doesn't prevent these people from doing anything. Hang on here. Sorry, guys. Ray is not happy with me pointing out the cross. Look, the cross was in your face. He's saying if she was Muslim, yeah, fat chance Trump would have a Muslim press secretary and a hijab. Would that be performative? All right. Ray says we need to learn to pick our battles. Yeah. Okay. Well, Ray, I want you to get back then. I agree that's not a major battle. That was a sidebar. Made me laugh what Nichols said about it being big enough to ward off vampires. That was an attempt at injecting a second of humor into the program. It is not something, yeah, to go to the mat about. In case you missed it, some of the other things Trump did, probably illegally, the other day. He's eviscerated the National Labor Relations Board, the EEOC. He's fired their, I want to just get the specific things. And he fired, these are boards that are made up of Democrats and Republicans. And what he did is he fired all the Democratic members of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that deals with, as you know, discrimination in hiring, and the National Labor Relations Board. Every Democrat that served on those commissions has been fired. He's not allowed to do that. What also this does is these are both like 5-member boards, and they now don't have enough people on the board to form a quorum. So they're not functioning. Again, part of the plan. The EEOC cannot function now. The NLRB cannot function. Those kinds of vacancies are filled through presidential appointment and need Senate confirmation. Dismissing members of these independent commissions, as he did, is a break from Supreme Court precedent dating back to 1935. So, precedent says, although if this gets to our current Supreme Court, they will find this precedent, not anything to bother with. Since 1935, so it's been 90 years since a president pulled something like this, and the Supreme Court back then, which was a conservative court as well, held that the president cannot remove members of independent agencies except in cases of neglect of duty or malfeasance. Well, he didn't allege any of that. Their malfeasance was they're Democrats, and they're not loyal to him. Let's end on an obit. This is my kind of Jesus freak. His name is Arthur Blessitt. What a perfect name. Arthur Blessitt. He was a Southern Baptist preacher. He's now dead. He died at the age of 84. Arthur Blessitt walked over 43,000 miles carrying a wooden cross. This cross just slightly bigger than the one Carolyn Levitt was wearing yesterday at the White House briefing room. He carried the cross literally to every country in the world. he Now, as he aged, he ended up putting cross got a little bit smaller and ended up having like little wheels put on the base so he could roll it instead of drag it. It was even stolen in, of all places, Assisi, where St. Francis came from. But this guy, whoa, what a character. Um, it took him 6 months to walk across the United States, and then Jesus told him to keep going. So off he went, and before it was over, as I said, he actually got to every country in the world. He went, including to Antarctica. He even dragged Mount Fuji with a cross. He confronted angry baboons in Kenya with his cross, and was nearly blown up by a terrorist bomb in Northern Ireland, all while carrying his cross. He even got into North Korea. That was his last country. He managed to talk his way into North Korea. How the hell he pulled that off, I don't know. Although all he was permitted to do was the North Korean authorities let him carry his cross from the front door of his hotel to the street and then back into the hotel. But he carried that cross. He ended up encountering, with the cross on his back, Yasser Arafat, Bob Dylan, all kinds of other folks. He stemmed out of the California 60s counterculture in what was the Jesus freak movement, which blended, hippie stuff and the gospel. And he had long hair and wore sandals, and his sermons were mingled with rock and roll lyrics and stuff like that. Sounds like he was a character. The only time he said he was once in Liberia, where some chieftain there mistook him for Jesus and was kissing his feet. And he's quoted in the New York Times obituary as saying, "It's the only time I ever considered stopping. I laid the cross against a tree and said, Lord, I will never try to take your glory and portray myself as a religious leader," which shows a true Christian humility to his act, which I love. And then he says, "And then I heard Jesus whisper to me, 'Don't worry about it. Just keep going.'" So he picked his cross up and kept on going. Arthur Blessitt. Uh, would that there were more Christians like him around. By the way, he was arrested many times, 24 times. Yeah, he was shot at, he was beaten, he went through a lot of stuff. But it took almost 40 years, but he literally visited every country in the world, which I've told you, but just too much. Wonderful. All right, guys, that is it for moi. God help us all. And I'll be back tomorrow, as far as I know. Toodle-oodle. I'm trying. I'm trying to end it. I'm trying. I am doing my damnedest. I really am. I really am.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.